So Dmitry Bivol has a successful return to the ring. After a year and a half out injured, he beats Michael Eifert to set up the fight that everybody wants against David Benavidez. Probably. Maybe not. Guys, in this video, we're going to have to dive into some boxing politics, because that is all that is standing between us and what is, in my opinion, one of the very best fights that could possibly be made. They're both elite, the stars would be absolutely fascinating. There's all these old sparring rumors about Benavidez dropping Bivol, but out of the two of them, you'd argue that Bivol has the better wins in the pro ranks. I'm sure that there'd be a lot of money on the table for it, so what's the problem? I'm going to be breaking it down for you in this video. Hello everyone, and welcome back to A Guy Called Henry. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're a new viewer. We do tactical breakdowns, we do analysis of all kinds of stuff in the boxing landscape, as well as a bit of storytelling. And also guys, please get your comments in the comments section below. What did you make of Bivol's return to the ring, and do you think we see him versus Benavidez next, or do you think it's going to be something else? And what would you like to see? Because I know what I'd like. I've said it in the intro, but I think what we're going to get might be something quite different. Now, in working out what's coming up next for Dmitry Bivol, and indeed David Benavidez, the man that we just mentioned before, we have to take a look at the Cruiserweight division, the division above, to begin. Because even though I do still think that David Benavidez, at this point in his career, is a natural light heavyweight, not a cruiserweight. Of course, his last win was at Cruiserweight against Artur Ramirez. However, he didn't do a water cut for that fight. He said so much himself.
You know what also guarantees me that I'm gonna have a great performance is, bro, I've been on weight since like last week. Not even trying to get on weight. So already a weight cut, you know, is a weight cut. It takes some out of you, but like when you don't have to deal with the weight cut, I'm gonna have all that extra energy that I usually put in to make to the weight cut. I'm gonna have it I'm just gonna be able to reserve it and just use it into the fight.
To me, that gives off the clear intention that he is not prepared to commit to the Cruiserweight division fully yet, although the boxing powers would have you maybe think otherwise right now, because David Benavidez has just been ordered as the mandatory challenger for the WBC world title against Noel Mikhailian. Now, this is significant because it has a big impact on the division's, I guess you'd call him the forgotten man. He's the forever forgotten man, Jai Opetaia. Everyone knows this guy is a fantastic talent, a supreme talent, probably the best cruiserweight on the planet, but nobody actually wants to take him on because, simply speaking, the risk at the moment is not worth the reward. And it's pushed Jai into a position where he couldn't get undisputed, the other champions wouldn't face him, and so he's ended up at Zuffa Boxing. I do find it ironic that everyone's like, why did Jai make that move? All these opportunities he's missing out on now. Yeah, it's easy to call someone out when the politics stop you from actually fighting them. It creates the optics that, oh, I would have done it, but he's at Zuffa now, which I do think is what's happening here with him, but let's go into it in a bit more detail. Now, the Noel Mikhailian fight being ordered for that WBC belt is significant because Mikhailian had been negotiating for quite some time, as I understand it, to face Jai Opetaia. It would have been for the Ring Magazine belt. I presume the WBC belt would also have been on the line. But the deal hadn't quite been done yet, and as soon as the WBC caught wind of this, or so it says in this article that I read on Boxing Scene, swift moves were made because there is a whole political picture here that is at play. The WBC do not want Zuffa to get any more power than they already do. By ordering Mikhailian to fight Benavidez, who is a WBC darling without question. Whenever you look in the ring, there's about 50 WBC belts floating around. Benavidez is still the WBC champion at light heavyweight. After Bivol was stripped, the belt was awarded to Benavidez. And even though his last fight was up at Cruiserweight, he's still the light heavyweight champion simultaneously. The other thing we should say about the WBC's decision here is that whilst they've got all these bylaws and rules that override rules and whatnot, it is rare for a champion who holds belts to be ordered as a mandatory to face another champion with a belt. Normally, it's like the two parties come together, they negotiate it, and the governing bodies will waive mandatories to allow the undisputed fights to happen. It's very rare that you'll go, you've got belts, we the WBC will order you to fight our current champion. But it's like they want to keep as much control as they can right now over Benavidez. They want Benavidez to be in their camp. They don't want any possibility where he's going and fighting for a Zuffa title, because that would just be disastrous for them. He is one of the next generation top talents. He is going to be the flag bearer for the WBC in their minds for a long time, whatever division he's in. And they want the WBC to be associated with one of the best fighters in the world right now, who is American. It's very important for their branding that he is one of their champions, I believe. So the WBC have ordered Benavidez to face Mikhailian for that WBC belt, meaning that if Mikhailian was to face Jai Opetaia, the WBC belt will now not be in the equation. It means that Opetaia doesn't get the opportunity to win that belt after having previously been stripped by the IBF for competing for that Zuffa belt. Or I don't know if the Zuffa belt's actually on the line, but he's on Zuffa. The Zuffa belt's in the ring. He's Zuffa champion. But technically speaking, the Muhammad Ali Act has not been repealed yet, which means that the Zuffa belt shouldn't really be a thing because they aren't allowed to have their own belt, their own rankings, their own sanctioning fees, and all that stuff quite yet. Legally speaking, that would be breaking the rules of the existing act. So right now, I think it's just like a trophy, a trinket. It's not actually a belt, but I think the governing bodies, they want to just, cut that line off right now and say, we're not entertaining your Zuffa belt. We're not going to be in business with you because you've clearly said you want to get rid of the governing bodies and create a unified boxing organization where everyone's with you and we don't exist anymore, ultimately. Now, boxing journalist Sean Zattel actually made a video that I watched this morning where he said he reached out to Jose Benavidez, who is the father of David Benavidez, to find out what the hell's going on with all this stuff, with these fights being ordered and whatnot. And he basically said that after they beat Zurdo Ramirez, they reached out to Turkey and to Dana White about the Jai Opetaia fight. And apparently, they only heard back just recently, but by the time they'd heard back, the WBC had already ordered the fight between Benavidez and Mikhailin for the WBC belt.
What Jose Benavidez tells me is shortly after beating Zurdo Ramirez, he sent Dana White a text, he sent Turkey Al-Sheikh a text, and he sent Jai Opetaia's manager, Mick Francis, a text as well to make an Opetaia fight. He didn't get word back from any of them for the last couple weeks until last night, and when it was reported that the WBC is now mandating Benavidez for Noel Mikhailian's belt.
Now, I'm not quite buying this, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't see any reason why Jai Opetaia would not jump at the opportunity to face David Benavidez. It really doesn't make sense to me. It would be a cross-promotion. Zuffa probably don't have an issue with that right now, I would think, because they need to get the dude fights. They need to give him the opportunity to take the star power of another man. I think if they could beat Benavidez, who's currently not with Zuffa, that would be great for them and their champion. So I don't see why they would not entertain that fight, entertain those conversations at the very least. And I think all this posturing, saying they'll fight Jai Opetaia, I think it's just that. I think it's posturing. I don't think they have any interest in him right now, especially while Benavidez is not fully committed to that cruiserweight division. It might be that he can just go and pick up an easy belt against Mikhailian, which I would understand. But once again, you find Jai Opetaia as a political casualty of the way that boxing runs, the way that the sport exists. And it's just such a bloody shame for the guy. And I guess as an option for Benavidez, you look at it and you go, well, why would you fight Mikhailian when you can go down and have the undisputed fight at light heavyweight against Dmitry Bivol? Well, first off, we've got to see what's happening with this belt situation, because it might be Benavidez for a vacant belt. If Mikhailian does decide to face Opetaia because the money's better or whatever, maybe he wants to be a good guy because they've been in negotiations for a while, then perhaps he's fighting for a vacant belt rather than fighting Mikhailian. That means that the Mikhailian against Jai Opetaia fight can still go ahead, but obviously it means a bit less because one of the significant belts is not on the line. Opetaia consistently says he still wants to be undisputed. He's, again, a belt further away from that. The IBF stripped him. The WBC wouldn't be on the line. It seems like he's in the political wilderness when it comes to boxing right now. And, at the end of the day, Zuffa are not signing the top cruiserweights in the world right now. The best signing they've made, other than Opetaia at cruiserweight, has been Chris Billam-Smith, who is a former defeated world champion. So yeah, maybe they'll get Zurdo Ramirez. Now, he's lost. Potentially, he'll finally have that Opetaia fight after he got destroyed by Benavidez, but I don't know. Now, the rumor coming out of the Bivol camp is that the IBA are looking to fund and put on the trilogy between Bivol and Beterbiev. And I think, to be honest with you, that does seem like the most likely next move for Bivol rather than facing Benavidez. And I suppose there's a few different reasons for that. One is that they've had one fight apiece. There is unfinished business. And Beterbiev doesn't have long left in the sport, if any time. I've already said myself, I'm not entirely sure this guy should still be active as a fighter. He was supposed to be fighting in November, but I think it was injury that he had to get pulled off that card. It was supposed to be a fight against an opponent called Dion Nicholson, but Beterbiev has been injured many times in his career now. He's getting older. He's had some major issues, and I just worry that he doesn't seem to be able to get through a clean camp now without his body breaking down in some way. And it makes sense. The dude's in his 40s. He's had a very long, very tough career. And I don't want people to think for a second, I don't think he's been one of the best fighters in the world. I thought he beat Bivol in the first fight. In the second fight, I can't quite remember how I scored it, but it was very, very close. The point is, those two have been inseparable in those matchups. And look, maybe Beterbiev gets in there for a third one, and it's the same thing again. But I suppose that Bivol probably feels on some level he owes Beterbiev that trilogy fight, and he'd probably like to settle it himself and say, look, I was the better man over the 3 fights, and then continue on with his career. It's culturally significant too, because it sounds like it's going to be staged in Russia, not as a Riyadh season event, so that will be quite special for the two men. And also, when looking at Bivol's own situation, he has only just come back from that really long injury layoff. And I suppose if you're looking at it, do you want to be going in against a fresh, young, hungry, fit Benavidez who's in great form, who's a big man, who Bivol knows stylistically could potentially be his hardest challenge? Or do you want to go in there with Beterbiev, who hasn't actually fought since the last Bivol fight? It would have been the same amount of time off for Bivol himself had he not just had this comeback fight against Eifert. It's been a long layoff for Beterbiev. He's not got any younger. Everything favors Bivol, especially after this performance against Michael Eifert, where he actually looked pretty good to me. I didn't see any slippage in him at all. And to be honest with you, I think he won every single round. Just because he didn't get the stoppage, it doesn't mean a lot. There's many fights where Bivol's gone in there and not got the stoppage. And there was a beautiful knockdown in round one, I have to say, where he timed him with a lovely counter left hook. Eifert had pretty good feet. I knew coming into the contest he was sort of domestic, maybe European level, maybe fringe world level. He is a good mover. He is a good boxer, but as I said before the fight, there's nothing he does better than Bivol, and that's exactly what we saw in the ring. There isn't really much to break down other than that. And I guess the issue is, if you're Benavidez, you've already gone through this saga with Canelo where you were waiting around for such a long time, you know, waiting for that fight, waiting for the super fight that could potentially change your career, waiting for that real big money, that big name that would elevate you to stardom. And even though Bivol is not on the same level commercial as a Canelo, not even close, to be perfectly honest with you, even though he's beaten Canelo, I think just being Russian, you know, he's just not as big of a superstar. That's the reality of it in Western sports. I think that Benavidez will be very, very reluctant to wait and see whether or not the Bivol fight can be made, because he just can't be sitting around waiting for his career to get on track. As I say, he's in his prime right now. He's performing brilliantly. There's belts out there for him to win. The WBC are massively favoring him when it comes to ordering stuff for him, you know, looking after his situation. He's obviously earned that, but also clearly the WBC want to keep him happy so that he keeps fighting for them as well. He said himself, I'm not going to be going over and fighting for any Zuffa belt, and as long as things are as favorable as they are for him with the WBC, I don't know why he would. So look, guys, that's the political situation as I currently see it. And I think with all that in mind, the most likely scenario is next. I would not be surprised if Benavidez ends up fighting Mikhailian for the WBC belt, or fighting for a vacant WBC belt against somebody else. I don't actually think, like I said in the beginning of this video, that he is a cruiserweight yet. I think that he was light at the weight last time. He was quite under the cruiserweight limit. As I said, he was on weight, quite a way out from the fight. I think he's ready to go back down to light heavyweight. But it's sort of like, well, I've got a bit of momentum up there. There's some political opportunities available to me right now with the WBC. Why not just pick up another belt while I'm waiting for Bivol to decide what he's doing? Because at the end of the day, there aren't too many interesting fights for him down at light heavyweight. If Bivol and Beterbiev are going to be getting it on again for a third time, those are the two fights that you'd want if you're Benavidez. The Beterbiev fight or the Bivol fight. And without either of them being available, it's like, well, I might as well fight at cruiserweight. I might as well extend my career in many aspects because I'm not having to cut weight in the camps. And honestly, the fights up there, they're kind of easier. You know, Mikhailian's not good, guys. I don't know if you've watched him, but I watched the first fight he had with Badu Jack, and it was absolutely tragic. Yes, he won that one. He didn't get the decision. He got it back in the rematch that was called for. But at the end of the day, Mikhailian is not a great opponent. I think the Benavidez will have no trouble whatsoever with him, if I'm being really honest with you. And it just sucks that Jai Opetaia is in such a weak position, because at the end of the day, if they're making that fight at cruiserweight, then you've got my interest big time. And even though I do favor the Bivol fight, because I just think that's the weight division that Benavidez should be in for his size, and even though it is a big water cart, it's because the jump from light heavy to cruiserweight is so significant. Anyone doing that cut, it's going to be a real toll on your body. It's going to be a real drain. But the truth of the matter is that I want to see him against Bivol. It's one of the best fights in boxing, I think, that can be made right now. Now that I've seen Bivol's fit, I'm pretty happy to... I'd be comfortable with him getting in there next in terms of his fitness, in terms of his conditioning. I thought he looked really good against Eifert. I should say that I don't think Eifert is offensively sophisticated enough. I don't think he has enough ability to put the pressure on Bivol that he was able to really test Bivol here. He did catch him a couple of times. He wasn't completely whitewashed, even though I don't think he won a round. But at the end of the day, I just think that Bivol, it was a run-of-the-mill thing for him. And because Eifert's legs do move a lot, you would have found out for sure if Bivol was having any mobility issues. However, I just wonder in a more physical fight where the opponent's stronger than him, tougher than him, if Beterbiev, for example, was in the ring with him in that one, a Beterbiev that let's assume he's fit and fresh, I do just wonder if Bivol might have struggled a bit more. But it looks like the surgery went well. It looks like he's back to form. I'm delighted for him. And even though I don't think it's going to be next, the sooner they can make that Benavidez fight, for me, the better. I really, really want to see that. But guys, get in the comment section below. Let me know Who would you like to see each man fight next? Do you want to see them fight each other? Are you happy with them to do what I outlined? What do you think about the whole political scene? And what the hell is poor Jai Opetaia going to do? What do you think about that? Because at the end of the day, that guy is kind of screwed. That's the truth of it. Unless Zuffa can sign some better cruiserweights, there's just not that many guys out there. I wouldn't be wholly surprised if Zurdo Ramirez comes back and signs with Zuffa now. I don't know what his current promotional situation is, how many fights he's got on his current contract, if any. But maybe that's, a final payday for him. Go and get that big Zuffa payday. Assuming it exists, because I've been hearing from certain sources that Zuffa aren't actually paying all that much money to certain fighters. So yeah, I guess we're going to find out. But congratulations to Dmitry Bivol on a successful return to the ring. And hopefully he can kick on in the next year or two and we can see him in some more big fights. But guys, thank you so much for watching this all the way to the end. And as I always say, on to the next one.